Hey everybody, we're back. Brand new Cabral Concept, episode 3042 of the show. Can't wait to get into and tackle the big problem of bottled water. So a lot of us think of bottled water. It's super convenient. It's easy. We can grab it on the go. It's lightweight. We've got our water with us. We're good to go. The issues that we don't think about isn't that one time you're grabbing a bottle of water, but what happens over months and years of drinking bottled water. Now, I want to look at this from a multitude of different factors. I want to give you 10 reasons today that you may want to begin to make the switch like I've recently done over the past few months. It's been a slow removal, meaning like I haven't been drinking bottled water for many, many years. However, what I looked at it as, I haven't been using like those 16-ounce waters, you know, like the Poland Spring ones or the CVS ones or the whatever it is. Haven't done those forever, because I've had filtered water, but I've still been consuming bottled water, right? So bottled water, I want to talk about that a little bit as well. I've been sometimes consuming spring bottled water, which some of that's plastic, not necessarily glass. Not as much, but still doing it. And I want to share with you that it's actually made a huge difference completely eliminating that. Not just financially, because every bottle is like $2 to $3 per bottle, right? The Mountain Valleys, the Icelandic, the Fiji, they're like $3 per bottle. So if you're drinking even those, one or two a day, it starts to really add up to a couple $100s per month. But that's not really the reason that I begin to eliminate them. I started to look at, all right, I wrote the rain barrel effect. I've known about toxicity for quite some time. I've taught it. But what I've looked at is this, that all of us, no matter who we are, still use a few things that we're unwilling to let go of, or at least have been for quite some time. So I just invite you to listen to today's show, and maybe it's not bottled water, but what's the one thing, maybe two things that you still have held on to that it's now time to begin to release? Move a little bit of healthier for you, your insides, which I'm going to be talking about today, as well as the world around us, which our children will eventually inherit, right? So let's get into it right now. The number one, you probably know, right? The number one, you most likely know, bottled water leaches chemicals into the water itself. What is that? What happens with that? Decreases sperm count in men, disrupts our digestive system, disrupts our hormone levels, can lead to early puberty, especially in girls. It can lead to cancer and much more. So what do we have? Well, we used to have bisphenol A, right? So BPA. Okay, now everything's BPA free. Great. But then we also now have many other just as toxic plastics as well. So just because you get rid of one doesn't mean the other plastics are healthy. Something called PET, or polyethylene terephthalates. So we have more phthalates now, again, which can be estrogen-based, aromatase-based, not inhibitors, but increase aromatase or estrogen in the body, can start to flow into our water. These are not good things. And again, they are known carcinogens, and over time they leach into our water. How does it happen? Well, the plastic itself will break down over time. But how does it speed up? Well, it speeds up when we're transporting these things on hot trucks, right? So the truck, in the back of a truck, in a box, it could be 115 degrees, 120 degrees in the back of those trucks. That's when the heat leaches those plastics right in the water. Even if it's not hot, when we consume it, it's already been leached. So that's number one. The second, and I want to link this up for you. So if you go to stephencabral.com/3042, I'll link it up. I just did a show on microplastics and nanoplastics. You'll be hearing more about these, but it's disturbing the research that they found. They were looking at the plaque in arterial heart-based disease, and they found that people with plaque have plastics in the plaque themselves, nanoplastics. And what they found is that nanoplastics in the blood, they're basically, when you look at them under a microscope, they're jagged. And so they create, well, inflammation with anything they come in contact with. So for many people in the arteries, they're creating what? Inflammatory damage of the endothelial tissue, which then causes plaque to begin to build up. Well, heart disease is still the number one killer in the United States and basically the world. So it's something that we really look at, that we really begin to worry about and say, okay, we need less of these plastics. From everything from, the tea bags that are made from microplastics, nanoplastics, to, of course, bottled water. The next one, and if you haven't heard of nanoplastics or microplastics, I'm going to link up that episode. The next one is that These bottled waters have an expiration date, believe it or not, and that is because bacteria can begin to build up, especially if we take a few sips and then put it back in the fridge or wherever it might be. That bacteria can begin to grow fairly quickly. And so one of the things that I at least want to share with you is that when you're using a water bottle of some type, let's say it's glass or stainless steel, etc., the stainless steel may inhibit that bacteria a little bit more. It's still going to grow in the water itself, but you're able to easily wash that out, right? You're not necessarily, you're just more cognizant of washing that out, hopefully each night, and then just using it again the next day. With bottled water, well, we might save it for a couple of days. It might be in your car. It might be something that, so again, think about that these things can be harbors for bacteria. The next one, I'm going to give a couple environmental ones, and that is that when we are using bottled water, sometimes it is causing more ecological based damage from the depletion of those reservoirs and natural resources. It's at least something to be thinking about. The reason why I'm thinking about this here today is because the home that I have in Maine is not far from Poland Springs. And I'm not saying anything bad about Poland Springs, but they dramatically changed that town for the worse. One, all the trucks going in and out. Of course, that's not necessarily a good thing, but also the draining, of these natural springs and reservoirs. It's at least something to be aware of. I love natural spring water like the next person. I think that in an ideal world, it's the best thing that we can drink. I want to share at the end why it's probably no longer the best solution for most of us. All right, the fifth one is overall pollution of a lot of these natural springs and waters that we may drink from. So hundreds to, of course, many thousands of years ago, these were much cleaner. The environment wasn't as polluted. And because of that, we didn't necessarily have to worry about, except for bacteria and parasites in these waters, of consuming all of the environmental-based toxins. Now, much of it is from pollution that essentially rains down on water, fields, etc., that then gets into our drinking water. It's just no longer as clean and non-contaminated as it once was. And that is basically environmental pollution in general. And so that we just, one way to look at it is just our oceans. Our oceans are filled with plastic. And that's not even what I'm here to talk about today, but trillions of plastic straws. Millions upon hundreds of millions of plastic bottles. And they just begin to congeal in the ocean in these giant trash piles. And it takes decades for them to break down. And it affects the fish, the wildlife, and ultimately us, because the plastic is ending up in a lot of these fish that we're then consuming as well as microplastics. So one more reason that, again, none of us are going to be perfect, but we start to move in the direction towards removing bottled water from our life. I'll give you my solutions at the end, ultimately, of what I've come to after, about 20 years of this. And the next one is, unless you're going with a good quality brand, many are misleading as to what type of water it really is. So there's a few brands out there. You can look them up. They're owned by Coca-Cola. They're owned by Pepsi. And all they are is tap water. That's really all that it is. Legitimately tap water. So now you're taking tap water, you're drinking it from a plastic bottle, which is only making the tap water even worse than it was as tap water. So tap water, as we know, it has chlorine, it has fluoride, which again, if you want to make the argument that if you swish it around your mouth, maybe it's beneficial for the teeth, maybe. I'm not going to make that argument. Other people can, but certainly not consuming it in your gut, which is going to disrupt your thyroid, your hormones, and potentially lead to devastating thyroid and poison-based issues, because that's what fluoride is. It's a known poison, especially not even in small dosages. So really important that we look at that. And then, of course, which is my next one, is so misleading that it could just be tap water. So we just make sure that it is actually spring water if we're going to purchase water. And then next one is potentially there's still contaminants, because keep in mind, tap water, your local city, you can look it up, you can ask them, you can just literally call down to City Hall. They test for about 400 different contaminants. Now, in different cities may test for different things, but there's over 60,000 Out of the 100,000+ man-made chemicals, over 60,000 that are potentially in the water. They test for 400. So if you get an all clear in your city, it doesn't mean that the water is safe. Just keep in mind, we've heard over the last 5-10 years or so, all the different cities have been devastated with these chemicals in their water that they didn't know about. Partially, they weren't testing, all right? So be careful that we don't necessarily know what is in our water, right? Because they may not even be testing for it. What does that include? Heavy metals, mercury, arsenic, lead, aluminum. Any of these things can be in our water, right? We certainly don't want them in our body. Neither do we want the volatile organic compounds, the VOCs, with runoff from different agriculture-based farms. What else is another big one? Xylenes, flame retardants, pharmaceuticals. You'd be shocked at how many pharmaceuticals are in tap water. You can just do a simple Google search. You'll be able to find it. And then, of course, pesticides, herbicides, etc. Okay, 2 more to go. The next one is this. And I was alluding to it a little bit earlier, but what happens is this. I'm gonna kind of pull back the curtain a little bit. When you walk into a CVS or a Whole Foods or any of these stores, right, grocery food stores, when we look down the aisles and we look down the refrigerated aisles and we see all of the bottles, that is partly on us. That is all plastic. It's literally all plastic. We vote with our dollars. If we stop purchasing as much plastic, we stop using as much, the companies will produce something else. They will use different containers because we vote with our dollars and they listen. That's the only thing they really listen to. You can't really get mad at companies for producing bottled water when people love bottled water, right? Plastic bottled water. We're really talking about plastic. Glass has its own issues, but I'll talk about that towards the end. But it's the plastic. It's really the plastic that's the issue. But if we purchase less of it, well, company's going to make less of it. That's really what matters. So economically, that's how we vote. That's how we have less of it, is ultimately we have to stop using it. All right, and the last one is this, that we're drinking water because it's essential for our life. It's essential for our health. I always talk about this and I'll continue to talk about it, but people are asking me about, should I do red light? Should I do PMF? Should I do grounding? Should I do, all these great healthy tech products? And the answer is yes, but not before you filter your air, you get clean water, filter your water, and you eat clean food. Like those are the 3 most important. The air we breathe, that's every few seconds of the day, right? We're taking that breath in probably once a second. And then also we're drinking 8 to 10 glasses of water a day in our coffee or tea or smoothies, etc. We need good, clean water. And then of course, clean food. So the problem is this, is that if we don't know what's in our water, we're most likely not getting in the healthiest things that we could. And that's specifically minerals. So most of us are not drinking good quality water with minerals in it. Minerals really give the body the ability to better absorb it. So when you have less minerals, most likely your absorption of that water is going to be less. Well, what does that mean? Well, it means that you're going to have to drink water and urinate a whole lot more. You're probably not going to be absorbing it as well as you could. You need that charge, right? You need that water to be structured and live in some way. Minerals help give it a little bit of charge, give it a little bit of life. It maintains a much better, proper pH. So tap water might be a pH of about 7. And I'm not telling you to drink super alkaline water before, all the alkaline people start getting up in arms right now. What I'm saying is that slightly to moderate alkaline water is better absorbed. And again, you can do a Dr. Google search on that as well. And so what happens is the minerals, though, give it a little bit more of that pH. That's why when you see bottled water, it's like, oh, this bottled water is more alkaline. Well, just read the ingredients. What do? Well, they put in some calcium or magnesium or sodium or potassium, right? Like that's basically what they're adding. And what that does is it raises the pH a little bit. It's not magic, right? But it does help the body absorb that to a little greater degree. Now, that doesn't mean it has any of the other minerals, right? All the trace minerals that you really do want for overall health as well, that a pinch of sea salt, a squeeze of lime, or one of those things may help with. But ultimately, what I want to share with you is this, that in general, purchasing water in general can be an issue because by the time it gets to you, no matter how great it is, it's been heated, right? It's been stored for a while. It's broken down. It's maybe oxidized a bit. It is not the healthy water that you necessarily want. And I wish that we all were able to just walk out, down the street to a local stream, get this structured running water, high in hydrogen, which is going to help squelch free radicals in our body, all these great things. But we don't necessarily have that ability. So what I've done is I've simply said, okay, enough with like all the different contraptions. I'm just going to make sure that my water absolutely has no contaminants in it. So I use a reverse osmosis filter. That's the simplest way to do it. Reverse osmosis. Now, what happens is when you use the reverse osmosis filter, it takes out a lot of the good minerals as well. So like, okay, well, I created a little bit of an issue now. So what do I need to do? Well, you can add the mineral drops back, or the reverse osmosis filter I use adds the minerals back in as the last step. So simple, easy. You can oftentimes, if you want, just add a pinch more if you choose to. And then after that, you have healthy, clean water for your whole family to drink. That's the nice thing. If you want to take it one step further, you can then hydrogenate it. You can add hydrogen back to the water, which is now going to take it from an oxidized water to something that has a negative ORP that's actually now far more structured and alive, but also has been shown to squelch free radicals and inflammation in the body. So this is the exact way that I do it now. But ultimately, what I found, and maybe as an aside, is that I'm just not contributing, and I'm not perfect by any means. There are more things that I need to work on. But in my own way, as one individual, at least now purchasing less and less plastic bottles from my life, even if it was spring water, and just enjoying being able to drink a glass of water out of a glass and have that water flowing anytime I want with the peace of mind that it's been filtered, the minerals have been added back in, and I can hydrogenate it so that it super saturates my body with more antioxidants rather than oxidants. So that is what I do. I wrote a whole article on, if you want to look at the testing and exactly what led me to this conclusion, it's at stephencabral.com/hydrogen-water. stephencabral.com/hydrogen-water. You can read the article. You can see the videos that I did in the testing. I'll also link it up at stephencabral.com/3042. Hopefully today's show was helpful. And if there's any questions, always let me know. My team and I are happy to reply. Take care, everybody. Have an amazing day. Feel free to share the show with anyone you believe it could serve. Thanks so much for tuning into today's show. Before you go, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. I want to make sure that you're getting our daily content, not missing out on anything. Functional medicine, wellness, weight gain, weight loss, anti-aging, living longer, stronger, and all of the most cutting-edge research. And if there's any topics you want to hear, feel free to leave them in the comments below. Take care.